We now move to Madagascar. As droughts worsen in southern Madagascar, thousands of Antandroy people have been forced to leave their homes, walking or traveling over 1,500 kilometers in the search of food, water, and safety. A new Amnesty International report says that Malagasy government has failed to protect them and links the crisis to both colonial-era policies and global climate injustice. To unpack the findings, we're joined by Nciko, Amnesty International's researcher on climate justice for East and Southern Africa. Nciko, thanks for being with us. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much for having me.
Great. To start off, what's the main message of this new report on the Antandroy people?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for the question. For many people who know Madagascar, they would definitely know that in the southern part of the country, the severe drought that have been really hitting the land of the Antandroy people who live in the Androy region in the southern part of the country. And here we are really speaking of an agropastoralist community. So essentially surviving on agriculture and cattle herding. And they've been doing this for generations. And they've kept to their traditions. So the situation that we are really unpacking in the report that we launched earlier today is really to demonstrate how the droughts that have now been linked to climate change have made it impossible for these people to easily perform agriculture. And this has gone on to affect many aspects of their lives. So, for example, with no agriculture, they have not been able to procure food. And this has affected many aspects of their day-to-day life, affecting market, affecting their health. And it is in this context that many of them has embarked on displacement as coping strategies. So about 90,000 people have fled the drought-induced famines that have been characteristic of southern Madagascar, and many of them have been the Antandroy people, and they've been moving towards other parts of the country. So the report that we launched today was really like looking at the rights of people who are already in displacement in terms of the protection and the support that the Malagasy government is supposed to give them. The report really brings it out clearly that we know that Madagascar has very little responsibility when it comes to climate change. The climate change that is really intensifying the drought, leading to the displacement of these people, the Antandroy people. That is really, really clear. But there are steps that the Malagasy government is to do in terms of its national plans that are aimed at responding to the impact of climate change, including the drought. So when we look at government strategies like plans and solutions that it has put in place to address how climate change is affecting the lives of Malagasy people, including the Antandroy people, these strategies are very silent on the needs of these people already in displacement. So, and with no protection and support, so they've been really like left to fend for themselves. So the report really looks at the human rights violations that they've experienced as a result of this neglect. So we looked at the violations experienced on the way because many of them have been taking the Boweni region in the northern part of the country, about 1,500 kilometers away, as their main destination. So the report is really like showing the violations on the way, the violations upon arrival, and the violations that they experience when the government places them in a resettlement site that falls far below the standard of an adequate standard of living.
I note that the report states that this is climate displacement, and you've also mentioned the reasons why they would walk 1,500 kilometers just to survive. It's a very staggering finding. And, you know, we know the reasons why they're led to end up walking that journey. This climate displacement has to do with the drought. How did Amnesty arrive to the concept?
Yeah, please come again. Is the question whether climate displacement has something to do with the drought?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. So, of course, in terms of displacement, linking displacement to drought are very complex phenomena to study, and this is also a reality in Madagascar, because there are really like multiple factors that lead to displacement. So the droughts that have been really intensified by climate change are just a major contributing factor, because at the point of departure in the Antandroy region, where these people are fleeing from, where they're fleeing the famines from, the hunger that has been really characterizing their lands, there are already like broken systems, I would say, in place, and then we just have this as a threat multiplier. So it's a major contributing factor, but not the sole reason.
Amnesty, the report also talks about colonial era policies. How does that history connect to what's happening today in Nciko?
Yeah. So one of the things that we do at Amnesty International in all the research, the campaign, and the advocacy that we do is we try to look at the root cause of the issues. So while conducting this research, we try to locate the root cause of this displacement of the Antandroy people. And we really like found, and this is really clear, this information has been out there, that the Antandroy region, where the Antandroy people are from, has been experiencing drought, chronic drought for generations. However, these people never used to leave their land to go towards other parts of the country. And the reason for this was because they had a drought resilient vegetation of cactus that could allow them to have access to food and water during drought period, and to essentially coexist with the drought. Yeah, and now Madagascar gets colonized by the French in around 1896. But the Antandroy people are still very much self-reliant because of this particular vegetation. So now the intention of the French colonial administration was to actually tap into the Antandroy people as a source of cheap labor to move towards the other part of the country, the other part of the island, to work in cash crops plantations. But this was very difficult for the colonial administration, because these people were really self-reliant, relying on this particular vegetation, and so they didn't have any interest to leave their lands, and even to leave and to go and take poorly remunerated jobs that the colonial administration was offering. So to go around this, what the settlers did was to manipulate parasites of cochineal, and placing these into canisters that were able to spray over this vegetation, which was about 40,000 hectares of land. And this took place between 1924 to 1929. Over 5 years, the whole vegetation was destroyed. And this is where the origin of this displacement of the Antandroy people comes in. 1930, the drought, the chronic drought hit again. But at this particular point in time, the Antandroy people had already lost that natural stronghold that was allowing them to coexist with the chronic droughts that have been hitting their region. And so in the district of Tsihombe, for example, in the Antandroy region, about half of the population either died because of the humanitarian crisis that came with the drought, in the absence of this natural support, or this vegetation that was allowing the people to coexist with the drought. So half the population either died or fled the district. And this is really the origin of the displacement that we are experiencing today, from the Antandroy region towards other parts of Madagascar. So as a coping strategy, because these are events that took place in the 1920s, the 1930s, the Antandroy people had to change somehow their cultural way of life. So every time chronic droughts were to come, that was a signal for seasonal mobility. So they could leave and go towards other parts of the country and then come back. So they really somehow integrated this as part of their culture, as part of their tradition. It's just that global climate change is coming today to now intensifying the drought, that we are no longer observing seasonal mobility, and we are seeing populations moving more permanently, embarking on more permanent displacement. And in the past, it used to be young men who were to leave to go and look for any types of jobs in other parts of the country and to come back. But nowadays, we are seeing men leaving, coming back to retrieve their families, and we are having also like cases that we documented in the report of now women taking it upon themselves to leave and to go to towards other part of the country.
So everyone
really
is now leaving in Nciko.
Yeah, there are many people that are already leaving. There is an issue of data collection also in Madagascar on this particular point, and this is one of the key points that we are putting forward for the Malagasy government. The available data that we have for now is coming from the organization, from the International Organization for Migration, but even this particular international body has been really using case studies that can say, for example, take 20 municipalities in the Antandroy region to just project how many people have been living. So we don't have specific data that can say that it's actually, this actual percentage of the population that have left.
But we know that it is actually 20 municipalities.
There are more municipalities in the Antandroy region, and the data that the IOM has been really relying on has been to take this just as case studies to provide, a picture of what is happening, but not really to cover the whole region and to give, really exact numbers of who is really living. And there's still data lacking at the point of arrival, because we actually don't know how many people are moving towards the other 20 and plus regions of Madagascar.
With that said, I'd like to find out from you whether, with the statements that the Malagasy government said that they're doing enough with the resources at their disposal, do you think it's fair of them to say so?
Madagascar has a very small responsibility when it comes to the climate change crisis. So that is a fair statement, but then the fact that Madagascar has little responsibility for climate change does not excuse it from its human rights obligations. So what our report has been able to show is how the Malagasy government has been actually rendering an already vulnerable community even vulnerable. So, for example, it is up to the government, if it is to receive support from global north countries, European countries, the United States, countries that have more responsibility for climate change. The government needs to give us the numbers and say, X number of people are being displaced, X number of people are men, X number of people are women. These are their human rights needs. The government has not been collecting that data or even relying on data that is available to quantify where possible what are actually the actual needs of the people who have been on the move. And some of their key needs are actually access to land, because this is an agropastoralist community. And as I said in the beginning, that have been trying to keep to their cultural tradition, which is to do agriculture and to do cattle herding for generations. So the Malagasy government has not been doing that. And to increase the vulnerability of these people, the government has been subjecting them to forced evictions, particularly for those who have settled around the Nkarafanski National Park, which is an important park not only for Madagascar, but really for the whole world because of its rich biodiversity. And while the government has the right to evict people, yes, but for an already vulnerable community, it has international obligations to provide alternative accommodation. The government has not been doing this. And we've also painted a case of which actually shows that the government is not taking progressive steps in the realization of this particular, in terms of providing the support and the assistance, the protection that these particular people need, by placing them in a resettlement site where the conditions are very akin to the conditions that we could have in an open air prison, with people really being trapped in a resettlement camp, unable to leave, and with tragic incidents like people dying already that we are able to touch on in our report.
Nciko, so, yeah, really, thank you very much for painting us a clear picture of what's happening in that part of the world. We'll keep tabs on your research and see how far you've gone, because I can tell from what you have told us that there's much more that you will be able to tell us in the coming days or so. Thank you very much for your time.